Let's call our meeting to order, May 4th, 2010. We'll begin our meeting with the salute to the flag, please.
This is the Falls Township Governmental Access Channel 22 on Comcast and Channel 40 on Verizon Fios. You're about to view the Falls Township Board of Supervisor meeting for May 4th, 2010. This program was pre-recorded earlier for playback at this time.
Okay, thank you. Mrs. Poland, can you call the roll, please?
Mr. Zafka?
Here.
Mrs. Wisniewski?
Here.
Mr. Harvey?
Here.
Mr. Dent?
Here.
Mr. Snakes?
Here.
All right, thank you. We'll begin this evening's meeting with item number 1 on our agenda, Sims Metal Management Preliminary Land Development on South Steel Road. Mr. Gray?
Yes, as mentioned, this is a preliminary land development application for Sims Metal Management, formerly Fairless Iron and Metal, South Steel Road, tax map parcel number 13-47-147. And tonight, representing the applicant is Mr. Doug Maloney.
Thank you. Good evening, Mr. Harvey and members of the board. Douglas Maloney representing Sims Metal Management, and I'm going to make a very brief presentation tonight and then ask that you consider tabling this matter to your next meeting. What we're proposing to do is request preliminary and final land development approval. I know that it's been announced and it's on the agenda as preliminary only. When we filed it, we paid the fees for both preliminary and final because our client is in a great rush to try to get this done. The reason is this application involves redevelopment or additional development of an already developed industrial site on South Steel Road, and it involves a total of less than 10,000 square feet of buildings that are going to house additional metal processing equipment. That equipment is extremely expensive and it's on order and is going to be delivered later this summer. So we're trying to get this up and running and developed very quickly so that the buildings will be there to house this equipment. It's a 50-acre site, and as I said, we're talking about 2 buildings that are very simple in design, involving less than 10,000 square feet in total. When we appeared in front of the Planning Commission, we were asking for a series of waivers, most of which involved stormwater management facilities. We sharpened our pencils and and we've eliminated all but one of those waiver requests. Because we're going to be asking for both preliminary and final, we'd like the opportunity to eliminate even that last waiver request, and that deals with the conveyancing capacity of the pipes to get the stormwater from where it's falling on the ground into the stormwater basin. We're asking for, right now, as our plans are, they don't comply with your stormwater management ordinance with regard to the conveyancing capacity of the pipes. So we're going to see if we can increase that capacity and come back to you with completely clean plans. The resolution that you have in front of you, right now the plans are fairly clean, and by that I mean virtually all of the comments except for this one involving the capacity are relatively minor details that are easily fixed and cleaned up, you know, and I think that would be appropriate for final approval. We know that the board is typically reluctant to grant both preliminary and final. The Planning Commission, because of the waiver requests, didn't recommend both preliminary and final, but we had hoped to be able to get through except for this one issue. So we're going to ask if I'd like to do 2 things if I could this evening. One is to have this tabled, and I assume that's probably not too controversial. But secondly, I'd like you to let me know if you have a problem with both preliminary and final when we come back in a couple of weeks, assuming that the plans are free of any waiver requests. And I know that I can't bind you to that or anything like that, and right. Things can happen that, you know, obviously I'm not asking for an absolute commitment, but because of the somewhat unique nature of this application that we are in very much of a rush to get this under construction and get the buildings up, we're trying to do the right thing and come before you with very clean plans so that we can get both preliminary and final.
Okay. Well, I do see you have your diagrams up here. Was your intention just to sort of go over an overview of the project?
I could do that tonight, or I could do that at some other time. And I have here present Max Peters from T&M Engineering, who's our project engineer. We have several representatives from Sims Metal Management. If you had any questions about the operation themselves, Tom Mazza, Chris Cooney are both present, can testify about the operation. Basically, this is an existing metal processing facility. It's roughly rectangular in shape, 50 acres in size, has a stormwater detention basin in that area. All of the material is processed pretty much in the center of the site already. Trucks come in off of South Steel Road, come into the site and unload metal material. That is then processed, and it's taken from one processing site to another, all in this central processing area by conveyor belts. So it's very much a mechanized operation. And right now, among the features that we're going to incorporate into this plan that will really improve the site, frankly, is right now what they call the haul roads, or the loop roads that trucks travel on to drop off and then leave the site, are all stone. We're going to make that into concrete. One of the problems that I believe was noted in the review letters is that the stormwater detention basin is silting up. And certainly we've been working very closely with the Bucks County Conservation District in trying to avoid erosion problems on the site. This is going to eliminate almost all of them. Another feature that we're going to incorporate into the plan is a tire cleaning grate up near the entrance to South Steel Road. That again was a recommendation from the Conservation District. One of the comments had come up about trucks leaving the site having mud on their tires and not getting on the steel road. In fact, we were using a road cleaning service to try to clean that up, and that'll probably end up saving us money by doing that. So those two features alone are going to solve a lot of the complaints that we've had from the Conservation District about this site. Other than that, that's about all that there is to the site. You can see, if you look at the plans, the very small two buildings that are going to be built here, both of which are going to just be to house this equipment that's coming in. And what happens, and again, I don't understand the process very well, but this is basically breaking down manufactured metal things, could be a car, could be anything, into its component pieces so that it can be reused or recycled someplace else off-site. These two buildings are going to allow us to extract and save even more of the material. Right now, a fair amount of the material ends up getting recycled. The balance gets shipped off to a landfill, and the amount, the proportion, varies from item to item. These will allow us to extract much finer, smaller pieces of metal as it goes through this sort of shredding and sorting process. So it's frankly sort of a good use from an environmental point of view. It's also a good use from a bottom line point of view for our client. But it's a very simple proposal that sort of has mushroomed to a certain extent, in that all they want to do is put up two very small industrial buildings on an already developed industrial site, and now they're building roads, now they're involved in the stormwater management and tire cleaning, a 16-foot wide tire cleaning facility and that type of thing. So anyway, we would like the opportunity to come back to you with absolutely no waiver requests whatsoever, and hopefully get both preliminary and final approval at your next meeting.
Okay. All right, we'll go to board comment and questions here. Mr. Zipka?
Thank you. This really is a recycling operation for whatever type of scrap metal.
They don't actually recycle, as I understand it. They just process the metal, and then it's recycled at some other facility where they might buy the raw material, and somebody else recycles it and converts it into something else.
Is the shredder going to be totally enclosed? Is that part of the DEP?
This is Tom Mazza with Sims Metal
The
Management.
shredder's already been up and running for several years. It's the,
And you have, well, and the permits for, but now with what you're going to be doing, will the permits have to change? Because will there be more questions, or we'll say, of any type of pollutants going into the air?
No, nothing's going to change. These buildings are going to be totally enclosed for the equipment that's going in them.
It's strictly just to keep equipment inside. It's not really going to be part.
These pieces of, sorry to interrupt, these pieces of equipment are highly technical, because as the years go on, technology enhances, computerized.
Right, but are they, again, in any way, we'll say any way, shape, or form, going to be breaking the material down, that any of the particles or particulates that might come out of it get into the air, that the DEP is going to have to give you a separate permit?
You're thinking like CFCs and things from air conditioner units and cars and things of that nature?
Possibly, but just a little fine particulates out of.
We are going to ask to amend our air permit for this process.
Yes.
But it's nothing that we can't meet environmental standards.
Okay.
And you already have an air quality
Yeah,
permit?
we already have, and yeah, I think there was a letter that we will comply with any dust, fumes, all that environmental issues.
But I guess the point I'm getting at, but the one you have now might have to or will have to be modified?
No, there's actually no air permit for the downstream buildings.
Oh, really? Okay.
It's just for the shredder, but this system that we're putting in has like a dust collector. That's why we're going to get it.
And how about with the tire cleaning area, the grate and what's going to be under it? Any of the
That's going to be like a concrete containment.
Right, but any of the matter, we'll say, if it's more than just a mud getting washed off it, any of the, we'll say, pieces of the material that you are shredding would get carried out there. That's going to have some type of pit, we'll say, that collects that.
Again, the sweeper that's on the street, we would put that in the yard now and
Okay.
sweep from the gate all through the roads. And also, all our inlets have these sacks, stainless steel sacks,
Okay.
to capture any of that. Certain grades of
Right, the different.
sieves that it can go through to catch, so it doesn't go into the stormwater. Then also, if you see the detail, there's riprap around the drain, the concrete slab, riprap, and then hay bales. So there's like three layers of protection.
It looked like in the
before
one
water goes in.
in the one area of the plans I was looking at, it looked like it had 3 or 4 different, I'll say, filtrations for different sizes. So it really would stop it from going into anything going out in the streams or anything.
Right. And then we'd like to keep the roads clean so the trucks, naturally don't get flat tires,
Right.
kick up dust, the whole 9 yards.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Mrs. Wisłowski, questions or comments?
I don't think there's a board member up here who understands our zoning ordinance as well as I do, because when I was chairman of this board, we took a 25-year-old zoning ordinance and we upgraded it. But I, on advice of council, will not be addressing this issue with any specificity. I studied these plans, looked at them carefully, but I will probably abstain tonight on this, any vote that might be taken tonight, and I probably will abstain when this comes before the board as a final thing. But I don't want you to delude yourself into thinking that I haven't studied it, because I certainly do know what you're contemplating out there.
Mr. Snipes?
Yes, Mr. Maloney, you had mentioned that moving from, you said they were gravel roads to concrete? Yes. Was going to have a positive impact on the silting in of the basin, et cetera. If you could describe what you're talking about.
Right now, these roads, the interior roads, are all stone, and a lot of dust is kicked up, a lot of silt is working its way into the stormwater management system as a result of those stone roads. One of the things that, frankly, the Conservation District wanted us to do was to pave them. One of the concerns is that silt is getting into the detention basin, and apparently stone roads contribute much more by way of runoff, mud running into the stormwater management facility, than if the roads were paved. So that's what apparently the engineers all agree on that, and it's somewhat expensive, but that's what we're going to do. It does add somewhat to the impervious surface, and that has resulted in some modifications to what we're proposing to do by way of stormwater management. But all things considered, frankly, it does get very dusty out there sometimes, as you can imagine, with large trucks going over stone and gravel areas, so it made sense.
And you said concrete. Are you asphalting or you're creating concrete?
Concrete.
Concrete roadways.
And that was one of the notes on the plan, was that we were undecided as to whether to make them concrete or asphalt. And when the plans were prepared, we hadn't made that decision yet, so we had specs from both on the plans, and the engineer recommended that we sort of decide and clean up the plans by eliminating the inapplicable specs, and that's going to be done.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'd like to ask Mr. Sullivan if you have any comment on the increase of the impervious surface or
Well, I was going to address that, but you beat me to the punch here. As Mr. Maloney mentioned, the project here has been under the design work of T&M Associates engineers. In fact, the engineer here behind Mr. Maloney is from T&M. T&M is, of course, the township engineer, and so Mr. Sullivan did not review these plans. Instead, they were reviewed by Mr. Baker from Traffic Planning and Design, the township's traffic engineer. Mr. Baker's here this evening, so I ask the question be more adequately
Sure, I understand.
sent to him.
Could you comment at all on the increase of impervious surface and any of the questions of proximity to wetlands or any other issues with water runoff or increased water runoff?
Right. Well, that is one of our concerns, and that's one of the reasons why the applicant now is going to take another couple weeks to address some of those issues, so that they can, accommodate that additional runoff that will occur from the additional impervious coverage, and that'll give us time to work with them to settle those issues prior to the next meeting. The other thing I believe that they're proposing to do is actually slope the road towards the interior of the site to help reduce some of the runoff around the perimeter. So everything will run to the center where they can catch it and treat it.
And there's no issue of proximity to wetlands? There are some located on the map.
Yes, I believe there are some. I can't remember which side that is.
It's toward the top there.
Right, so along the northern side of the site. And what they're proposing to do there between the proposed loop road and the edge of the wetlands, they're proposing to stone that area to help, again, reduce some of the sediment and things like that washing into the wetlands. Mm-hmm. And that was a recommendation, I believe, from the Conservation District.
From the Conservation District, okay. Yeah. All right, that's all, Mr. Chairman.
Okay. All right. Thank you, Mr. Baker. Mr. Dents?
Yes, you came tonight and you were looking for one waiver from land development, and you're confident that you won't need any when you come back in the next meeting? Or you're hoping that
I'm
you won't need
relatively
any?
confident. I'm looking at our engineer. I'm relatively confident, yes.
Okay.
That when we come back, we won't need that waiver.
Okay, no, that's all I had.
Okay. I was going to ask Mr. Baker the question that Mr. Snipes asked, but the other issue I did have with regard to thinking about preliminary and final, I know another issue raised by TPD was the issue of vehicles parking on South Steel Road, and obstructing some of the view was in terms of safety issues with the vehicles coming down that road. And I think that's something. It's a very large site, and I think I would hope that would be an issue that you could address before the next meeting. Working with Mr. Baker.
We will. We are working on that.
Okay. All right. And I do appreciate the efforts you're taking to keep the roads clean. I guess you're new owners of the site. You just purchased the site, or because it was called a Fairless Iron and Metal, I think, before that, correct?
Purchased, I guess, just about a year ago.
Okay.
In July of '09.
Right. I know that the previous owner we did have several issues, code enforcement, in fact, police issues in terms of vehicles having to travel on South Steel Road past that entrance and having tires blow out because vehicles were leaving the site and there were chunks of metal, nails, and all kinds of things laying all over the road, and it was dirt all over the road. So I appreciate the effort you're taking to make to fix that situation. So I'm taking that to heart too. Right. So I don't think I have any more comments or questions. Mr. Maloney's asking for a motion to table until the next Board of Supervisors meeting. We have to table to a date certain, Mr. Clark. We don't have to do that, do we? We can table to the next meeting, because I
We can
know...
table it to the next meeting. As
Okay.
Mr. Maloney may or may not be aware, the next fall's meeting falls on the night of the primary, so the board later will be contemplating moving it, so it may be moved a couple of days either way, or maybe even into the following week. So
Okay.
your agreement is to, well, I don't even think there's any time restrictions on this plan.
I think if we do it by the next meeting, we're okay, correct? So it's fine, Mr.
That
Mullally.
is correct. If you do it by the next meeting, you're fine.
All right, if we table to the next Board of Supervisors meeting, that's understanding it obviously won't be like tomorrow. It'll be,
Right.
okay. All right.
Yes, that's fine. Thank you.
Okay, is there a motion to that effect then for this matter?
Mr. Chairman, I'll make a motion that we table the matter of Sims Metal Management preliminary land development until our next scheduled meeting of the Board of Supervisors.
Is there a second?
I'll second the motion.
All right, motion table is made and seconded. Mrs. Pullen?
Mr. Zupka?
Yes, to table.
Mrs. Wislowski?
Abstain.
Mr. Harvey?
Yes.
Mr. Dents?
Yes.
Mr. Snipes?
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Maloney. And thank you, Mr. Baker, for your work, too. All right, next item on our agenda, item 2, is to consider finalizing an award for the Challenger Field to Landmark Constructions Incorporated. Mr. Gray?
Yes. On March 16, 2010, the board approved a notice of intent to award a bid to Landmark Construction Services for the Challenger Field. TNM has completed the review of the qualifications of Landmark Construction Services. Further, TMN has determined that they have a sufficient record of reliability and experience to justify the award of a public contract in accordance with the requirements of Falls Township. Therefore, TMN does recommend that the township finalize the project award and contract with Landmark Construction Services, Inc.
Okay. All right, comments or questions from board members? Mr. Zupka?
No, none.
Mrs. Kozlowski?
Yes, I was hoping to see someone from the Continental Little League field here tonight. I don't believe there is anyone, and especially Ed Mathias, because it had not been for that man, we would not be approving this Challenger Field renovation tonight. And so I think all of the Little Leaguers owe that man a vote of thanks. And it was shortly after he appeared at a meeting and discussed the plight. I was hearing about it for the first time. And it bothered me because he discussed the condition of the field. And obviously, I keep saying we should spend our money on kids. And it was just a couple of days later, I had dinner with Senator McElhenney. And he said, the reason that I asked you to dinner is to tell you that I'm going to have $40,000 worth of surplus money in the next budget. And I'm going to give that check to you, and you can spend it on a few false charities, or you can spend it all in one place. But what I have to have is an accounting of where the money goes to get the check cut. And it won't be until the budget is passed. So I said, I know exactly what I want to do with the money, because a man named Ed Mathias, whom I had never seen before, appeared at a township meeting, and he said that they needed that field improved, and it had been hanging for 5 years. That was what bothered me the most. No action in 5 years, and the kids, some of them who were handicapped and playing in wheelchairs, could not use that field. And so the wheels started moving, and I am writing the story about how all of this happened, and I don't need to go into the finite details tonight, but I do want to thank Mr. Mathias for his part in waking up this board and waking up the community to the great need there. And I believe we're in, Mr. Sullivan, for $209,000, is that it?
Contract price is $238,795.
$238,795, and would that be Mr. Mathias that just wandered in here? Well, you just missed the speech when I gave you credit for this field because you deserve the credit, sir. And you'll have to watch the tape to find out whether you're a good guy or a bad guy. But I think you have a clue. Thank you.
Mr. Snipes.
No comment, Mr. Chairman. I think we should move forward.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Dents?
No, none comments.
Okay, thank you. Is there any public comment needed? See no hands. Okay, then we're looking to finalize award for the Challenger Field to Landmark Construction Services Incorporated. Is there a motion?
I move that we finalize the amount and start this project.
Second.
Okay, motion's made and seconded. Mrs. Pullen, pull the board, please.
Mr. Zupka?
Yes.
Mrs. Weslavsky?
Absolutely.
Mr. Harvey?
Yes.
Mr. Dents?
Yes.
Mr. Snipes?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. All right, next item on our agenda is consider awarding bids from the auction of surplus equipment. Mr. Gray?
Yes, at the February 16th Board of Supervisors meeting, the board approved authorization to advertise an auction of 5 surplus vehicles the township currently owns. Sealed bids were publicly opened and reviewed on Thursday, April 22nd for 2 township vehicles available as surplus equipment. The highest bid for a 1989 GMC pickup was $100 by Nick Noel, and highest bid for a 2001 Ford Expedition was $227.77 by Leon Thompson. The board is asked to consider approval of the sale of these 2 surplus vehicles.
Okay. All right. Mr. Clerk, we approving these, do we have to approve them one at a time or just approve them all at once?
You can approve them all at once. These
All right.
were all put out to bid as a group, and you can approve both of the bids.
Okay. All right, we'll accept a motion, or any comments or questions from board members? Don't think, I think there would be, or Mr.
Yeah, the
Sokol?
only question I have is how about the other 3 we didn't get any bids on? What do we try to re-advertise them, or we just
I think, Mr. Gray,
send them up to Steel Road and let them try to shred her out, or?
I think we're going to shoot them, put them out of their misery. I think these are not in top shape.
Yeah, these are in bad shape, these particular vehicles.
Well, we only got $100 for the one. How good a shape is that?
Yeah, that was the good one.
Right, but
I would think it would be worth more than that as scrap.
Possible.
Yeah.
well, this could be turned into something being donated then to the type of charities that take tow the car away and
Right,
turn it
Purple
into
Heart or
money for the
something.
Purple Heart and such.
Right.
Yeah.
I
Then, if that's what we're going to do, I mean, let's do it with the Purple Heart charity.
Bill, isn't the amount that you get at the scrapyard for a vehicle something like $150?
Actually, it's by the weight of the vehicle.
The weight?
They'll weigh it and whatever the price of, we'll say, steel is that day. It's
Yeah.
kind of what they give you.
Okay, the last figure I heard was 150.
It could be.
Yeah.
Okay, any other comments or questions?
No.
Any public comment needed? Don't see any hands. All right, then, is there a motion to accept the auction bids for the 3 vehicles that were put up to as surplus equipment?
Two.
Those were the
considered.
pickup and 2 expeditions.
The one expedition and the pickup.
There were 2 quotes for the Expedition.
Oh, I apologize. I'm sorry.
Oh, oh.
I'm sorry. Okay. All right. All right. All right, then, 2 vehicles, and GMC pickup and Ford Expedition. Is there a motion to accept the bids?
So moved.
Is there a second?
I'll second it.
All right, motion made and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. All right. Up to public comment portion of the meeting. Thank you. Okay. See several names on the list here. First name on the list, Roland Kenny.
Good evening, Roland Kenny, Falls Township. Around a year or so ago, I was backing a storage center going in the old Pathmark building. And I asked you people to pass it the first time, and you turned it down. And I said, if you don't pass it the second time, they're going to move out and go down Philly and build that one. Well, it wasn't passed the second time. They went down Philly and built that one and left this one. I don't know whether they went bankrupt or what, but Now we have a dilapidated building again, skids all over the back. It looks like a warehouse. And does this person who's doing this own this property? Are they going to put in the sidewalks that the other guy was going to do around to the bank and with the trees along it? That's one of the questions I got there. And I heard things a meeting or two ago about grants. Is it not true? You apply for a grant. That grant, you apply for a specific item. That's the only thing you can use that grant for, ain't it? You can't take that money and use it for anything else.
Depends on the grant.
Depends on the grant, yeah. But usually, you're right. You have to be somewhat specific as to what you're using for. You just can't ask for money and be given money and then spend it on whatever you want. It has to be, but you can be a little bit vague. You can say something with regards to, for example, the money we've gotten from Representative Galloway for the Challenger Field is money that was basically just put in for recreation for children. So it was something relatively vague that we could apply to several things.
Okay. Next, I heard a couple comments on the board that Falls Township has plenty of money. I don't think we should be saying that, that we got plenty of money, because I have a feeling, it gets back to Harrisburg. We got plenty of money. Why we need grants? You know what I'm saying? I think that should be a no-no. And I just want to leave you with, I watched a documentary the other day about World War II, and there was a general, I remember this from when I was a kid, a general for the German army, Himmler, or one of their names. He said, I'll just leave you with this. If you tell a big enough lie over and over and over and over and over again, eventually the people will start believing it. God bless you and good night.
All right, and just to answer your question, Mr. Kinney, regarding the old Pathmark building, the first, it was actually approved as a storage center the one time. It was, sort of tabled, and then sort of later on it came back and it was approved. The people that were going to build the storage center did basically run out of money, whether for whatever reason, because of the economy or something, their own problems, we don't know. What I was told in January by the owner of the entire shopping center was that the property had been sold to a new business that was supposed to be, in the process of moving in. I'm not sure what the status of that is. We don't have any information in terms of everyone coming to us with plans. I can reach out and touch base with that individual again just to see if there's some kind of an update. But he had told me the property, that specific building had been sold, and he had told me that they were not going to be putting they're not going to be changing the size of the structure. Remember, the previous people, the storage center, they wanted to go out in the front of the building, in the parking lot. From what I was told, the owners or the people that had just bought it we're not going to be doing that. They're just going to keep it as it was and go into it. I know Mr. Bennett has been down there several times to make sure that to look at issues with the fencing, because there was some lack of stability in some of the fencing they'd put up, and there was a concern about that falling over and some other issues. We can always send our code enforcement out there, and I think they go periodically just to look and see and check.
Yeah, it just looks like a warehouse now.
Right.
With stuff all in the back, and then the tractor trailers park on the side again.
Yeah.
It's starting to look like a dump.
Yeah, so I don't know. Like I said, I was told in January by the owner of the entire shopping center that he had sold that parcel off to a new business, and was very hopeful that they would be able to. They're going to be doing some good things, but I don't know if they're still in the planning stages. They haven't come to us, I don't believe, with any kind of plans. But if they're not changing the size of the structure, they don't really have to come before us for plans. They would just file permits to do whatever work they're doing inside, electrical or plumbing or whatever they're doing.
Okay.
Okay?
Thank you.
All right, thank you. Tim Watkins.
Good evening. Again, my name is Tim Watkins. Reason I'm here tonight, came to revisit the concern I have with your 2010 road improvement program. In the Pennsbury Heights section, there's approximately half a dozen roads that are going to be worked on, the aprons and the curbs. I myself had some work done about 4.5 years ago. And I'm going to just reiterate, one of my neighbors, he was here last week, I didn't have a chance to speak. Just concerned about the lack of notification on the permitting process at that time. I don't know if that was part of the phase one, or may I have missed it, but we're past that now. I'm at the point where the bid has gone out, the work is going to start. As a resident, what is my recourse going to be with that? I'm hoping I can work with the township here. I just see it as as a resident myself, wasting my money for doing the work, first of all. Second of all, wasting the taxpayers' money to come out, tear out my apron, reinstall a new apron in there, or curb, what have you. I'm hoping that maybe we can meet, come up with a solution at this point. Another point I'd like to make also is I researched my contractor to come out and do my work, and lucky I did that. I got good references. The guy did impeccable work. I don't know the company that's going to be doing the work, concerned about low bidder, quality, workmanship. I've seen some of the work that had been done in some of the other boroughs, some of the other townships. Not so good.
Mm-hmm.
Quality work was suffering. I feel as a resident, I don't want to be penalized, or the residents within those 5 or 6 streets that are to be penalized. The fact that they went ahead and had that work done, now it's going to come out. We had a lot of folks towards the streets that run adjacent or connect with Alden Avenue there that had a lot of their aprons redone. My neighbor behind me especially, he had a lot of work done. If that has to go, where do we stand now? So I'd just like the board to consider the decision on that, and maybe we can come to a solution to that.
Okay. All right, yeah, I know a couple things to address. The road program a couple years ago was accelerated, and so I couldn't tell you originally when your road was supposed to have been done. I mean, you said you did your work about 4 years ago, 4.5 years ago. At that point, you're on Stevens, is that what you said you are? Or
Oxford Road.
Oxford, sorry. That, when Oxford Road was supposed to be done, it could have been 2010, it could have been 11, it could have been 12. We've tried to condense a lot of the roads to sort of accelerate the program. And so we probably are doing the road earlier than we would have been doing it. So that's one of the things, and they wouldn't have known that in 2004 or 2006, 4 years ago. But certainly we can take a look at that. And I know the gentleman, Mr. Smith, here last meeting. It's something I know a couple of the board members have talked with, just having, where do we go from here? What recourse do we have? What can we do? One of the problems we have, of course, is that the situation isn't completely unique. There have been people in the past who've done some work, and then the road program comes through, and if we have to make a decision if we are going to come to some arrangement with the people like yourself and Mr. Smith. How far back do we go with people who say, well, 1999 it happened to me, and can we? And that's one of the issues we have to wrestle with, and we don't really know how we're going to deal with that. The issue with the bidding, state law, we have to go with the lowest bidder. We have stronger requirements here than I think a lot of boroughs and townships do with regard to what you just heard regarding the Challenger field, the responsible contractors. The engineer has the ability to look into the references of any bidders, all the bidders, even the ones that aren't necessarily low bid, just to see if they have qualifications, if they have qualified workers, to make sure that they don't have any problems in any other communities. That strengthens our hand, but still, the law states that we really have to show these people are not qualified, and we have to be strong with that. Fortunately, knock wood, we've never had that issue in the time I've been here, really. But we do have a pretty good inspection team that goes out there to make sure the work gets done. But I know I hear the complaint you're making, and we'll certainly have a talk with some of our professionals and with each other just to see what ideas we have to come up with. But sitting down with you, and I know Mr. Smith was here a couple weeks ago, maybe the two of you, and having some conversations just to kind of go over things, that's fine with me. Those are my thoughts of now, but I appreciate you coming out and letting us know about it.
Okay, thank you.
Don't walk away, sir. I'd like to be heard on this subject. I believe in fairness in all things that we do. And I believe when the township messes up or doesn't give adequate notice, and I don't believe the changing or accelerating the road program was done for altruistic reasons. A lot of times these schedules are made depending on who's running for office and who wants to please the people by getting their streets done. Now, the residents are in a catch-22 situation, because if your sidewalk's broken, then our inspectors come out and they tell you, you've got to replace it, or you're in trouble. You're going to be fined and be taken to court. And so you fix it, but the responsibility is the township's to notify all of the homeowners exactly when their streets are going to be done. And that is just common sense. So I sympathize with you, and I certainly sit on this board prepared to support the taxpayers, as I have always done. So I wish you well. Don't go away. Stay with it.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Watkins. Guido Mariani?
Here we go.
Guido Mariani, Falls Township. My concern about the oil spill and how it's going to affect all of us. Now, the recent accidental oil spill in the Gulf is really a tragedy. And it appears to be either a convenient or inconvenient accident. It depends where you stand on the subject of the environment. Just about the time that offshore drilling, the bans on it, was about to expire. Now, in the Gulf, there are about 35,000 wells that are dug there. A lot of people don't understand that. And that's about where 30% of all of our domestic oil comes from. Now, such accidents shouldn't decrease and don't decrease our need for energy, and it shouldn't be used as an excuse by anyone to close or disrupt our exploration and development of these energy sources. Now, the oil supplies about 40% of our energy, and it supplies about 99% of the fuel for our cars and trucks. Now, the Department of the Interior points out that we have about 112 billion barrels of oil beneath federal land and the coastal waters. Now, without continued development of these areas, we're going to be importing about 70% of our oil by 2025. This past week, we buried 29 miners. That was another terrible mining accident. Should we stop mining for coal, which is the largest single source of electricity? It's going to supply us with 51% of our power by 2025. It's not going away. 3 Mile Island, you had an incident there, closed the door to nuclear energy. That's a source that's safe, it's clean, it's economical, it's reliable, it's environmentally safe. Now, my opinion is that realizing that this green energy folks, the solar and wind guys, realize that that sort of thing is decades away from development, and the biggest factor for them is affordability. My concern is that they'll use this accident as a guide, as a guise of protecting the ecosystem, and try to curtail our continued exploration and utilization to increase that cost so that their green agenda could be viewed as more cost efficient. Now, I don't believe protecting the ecosystem is the real reason behind that liberal agenda that I believe is to curtail energy development. The ecosystem isn't that fragile. Species come and go. You're smiling, and
I think what we're going to, I don't mean to interrupt, but what we're seeing in the Gulf is a disaster, but go on. Go
okay.
on.
It is, but keep in mind where I'm coming from. Species come and go, and the system adjusts itself. Look, you ever hear of Hiroshima, Nagasaki, New Mexico, where we were developing the atom bomb? Pompeii, I was there, you should have seen that one. And the oil spill at Pearl Harbor is considerably worse than anything we've seen right now. And the system adjusts itself, and all these areas are healthy again. Now, indulge my suspicion, Mr. Snipes. Okay, Forbes reported at Petrobras, and I told you this, I think, over a year ago, That's a Brazilian oil company. They found 33 billion barrel field off the coast of Brazil. Now, if our current eco-sensitive administration were truly concerned about the ecosystem, why did they give Petrobras $2 billion for offshore exploration and watch these skylift platforms? They'll be coming in, and incidentally, they're manufactured in India and in South Korea. We don't even do that anymore. George Soros is the top donor of the Democrat Party and the top Obama supporter, and he happens to be heavily invested in Petrobras. And our friend T-Boo Pickens, that was your friend, and Mr. Prokopiak's, is a founding partner in Mesa Petroleum, which is the leading producer of natural gas. All this concern about the ecosystem. Now, the well-meaning, and this, I'll end with this, the well-meaning, responsible environmentalists, I'm telling you, don't let what I consider to be the one world radical greenies political agenda use you to close exploration and production of our energy resources that can and will provide billions in revenue, millions of decent paying jobs, and eventually, Mr. Snipes, will develop the alternate energy that we all want and that I think has great promise, like wind and solar. So tell your representatives we want to be energy independent, and tell them that we want to develop our sources. And Mr. Snipes, there are, for your information, 31,000 oil spills a year, most of them worse than the Valdez. So, you know, we're looking at the Gulf, but there's 31,000 of them a year.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Chairman, just real quick, Mr. Mariani,
Sure.
I'd like to send you some articles on wind and solar, especially about the country of Denmark, which gets 40% of its electricity currently from wind. So these things are being developed, so I'm with you on that. I'll send you a few articles that might be helpful.
Okay, and you have to understand, I'm with you on developing wind. See, I'm one of the more practical
Right, so let's move a little more quickly.
Okay.
Ms. Kozlowski?
I came to the meeting tonight because the rumors are flying that I'm in great difficulty. I had a heart attack last week or the week before, I'm not sure which, but I was hospitalized for it. So I wanted the public to see that the news of my demise is greatly exaggerated. I snuck out and came to this meeting tonight, and I don't intend to remain for the entire meeting. However, the Challenger field was so important to me, and when I saw that it was on the agenda, it gave me a second reason for coming. And I'm thrilled that that has been accomplished. I also want to say that one of the teachers' union people, when he heard that I was in the hospital and with a serious heart attack, he said, I hope she doesn't recover. So that was the nicest news I heard for a long time. It rejuvenated me. And I will be leading the fight in Falls Township to elect school board members who care about the taxpayers and especially who care about the children. Excuse me a moment, my back's hurting. I'm asking people to get registered to vote. And you can do that in a lot of different places. But anybody who really can't find a place to register, I will see that they're registered. I'll send someone to their home if they'll only get in touch with me. But you need to get registered to vote. At a prior meeting, I had said we've got 32,000 registered voters here in Falls Township. And the last year's election was won by people because only 3,700 of those registered voters came out, and that is a disgrace. So the fight to take the school board, and you know, the teachers union is saying now she doesn't like education. I will match education in my family with any of them, and it's not, I'd pay a good teacher his or her weight in gold bars, but we have dinglings in the classroom who hurt the children rather than help them, and I have a lot of that documented. So they'd better not mess with me because I'm equal to the fight. That will be my last thing that I intend to do here in Falls Township as a public servant. That next spring election, but in order to convince me that I should be in that fight, then I want the public to get registered and vote this year. Vote in May and vote in November. And if you miss the May primary, then you darn well better vote in November. You can just let your taxes keep going up, 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 and not get a quid pro quo. I will write a newsletter and give you some interesting facts about how our school district is being run and the kind of decisions that are being made. So please, voters, I love you all. Contrary to all of the predictions that I had such great political ideas, I never ever wanted to leave home. I never ever wanted to hold a higher office. I stayed right here at the grassroots level where participation is the most important thing you can do for your government. Participation. And the public needs to understand if they don't care enough to vote, then they're going to deserve the kind of government they've got.
Okay, Rugula Sheehan.
Whoops. I'm Regula Sheehan. I'm from Falls Township. I'd like to answer, I have a request. First of all, I would like to vote, but I need transportation over there. The last time I voted, I fell off the curbstone because my knee gave out. But I cannot find anybody who can give me an address, a telephone number, or something to call. I do not know who a committee man is or committee woman is because they don't come around. And I do not vote for people I do not know.
Give me your name and address, and I will see your telephone number. I will see that you are contacted, and you will be driven to the polls by someone that I will choose, and you'll be safe.
Thank you very much.
Let me have your name, please.
My name is Regula Sheehan, S-H-E-E-H-A-N.
Okay. And you live where?
And the telephone number is 215.
Okay.
Okay.
215-547-4738. You will be contacted.
If I'm not home.
Do you have a preference what time you'd like to go to vote?
It doesn't matter.
Well, just say a time and maybe we can finalize that now.
Okay, how about, what is it, around 11, 12 o'clock, around that time?
11 a.m. Someone will contact you and pick you up.
Thank you very much.
I'm sorry, Mr. Sheehan, you have to make sure you use the microphone, ma'am.
What's that?
Use the microphone. Just put it more in front of your. Yeah.
Oopsie.
That's good. You just stand. That's it.
Is that better?
That's much better. Yes.
Okay. You know, everybody is concerned about the environment. So am I. But I have to say something at this point. I have been in this country since 1951. I have not ever seen such a dirty country, and everybody is afraid of germs. They wash their hands with sanitizer and all that sort of stupid stuff. And they're throwing trash all over the place. How come? I would like to know. We have little laws, but they're not being enforced. Now, I cannot, according to my doctor, I cannot pick up any more trash off my property. I get beer bottles, beer cans, and I don't drink that kind of stuff. I have, what is it, Kentucky Colonel food bags, everything you can think of winds up on my property. No, it doesn't get picked up by the park, of course not, but I have told them in management, I'm not allowed to bend over and pick up stuff anymore. So it stays on my lawn. Now, when somebody cuts a lawn, they kick it into the street. So what? You know, it's not my stuff. I don't do that. I can't understand it. Now, we do, I have the, I got recently a new car, and of course I had to change my registration, and I have, there is always something about the little law on there. But nobody enforces it. I mean, the highway across the street from me, Route 1 Business, looks a mess all the time. Mm-hmm. And somebody, who was it, Mr. Kenny, mentioned the old Passmark building. Have you ever seen the back of that? Full of paper, everything. Who picks it up? I don't understand how that is possible.
Mrs. Sheehan, the property owner is responsible for keeping his property clean. And so, if you make a complaint to the township and have code enforcement go out and cite them if they don't clean it up, that's how it's done. One of the worst pigsties that ever was down on old Route 13. I went down and looked at it 2 weeks ago, and I was shocked. It was immaculate. I even called the zoning officer and I said, "You made a miracle. It's clean."
No kidding. Well, see, the thing is, they will pick up on the street and on the sides, but not on my property. I'm, you know, even though we are paying over $500 for the rent there in Breezy Acres, nobody does, you know, we have to take care of our own property there. But I cannot do it.
Right.
And I don't have the wherewithal to hire somebody to come and pick up after the drunks and all the other people who do not know. Cigarette butts, everything. And cigarette butts, they're not, basically aren't that bad, but the filters are.
Right.
They will kill your flower beds. Mm-hmm. They did a pretty good job lately on my stuff. So I don't know, but there is one other thing too. Is there somebody here on the board who could put a fire underneath PennDOT and take care of those big patches that are still left?
Oh, right out here, you mean, around the...
Yeah. Because if you want to get around them and not hit them...
There's almost no way to.
Usually you have a problem with a car that's sticking out too far. That is a little bit too... Did they forget that, or what is it? Luckily, I know where they are, you know?
Yeah, I sort of keep waiting for them to get finished, and I know that's something Mr. Gray, I saw making notes. I know he's going to make a phone call tomorrow morning to make sure that somebody from PennDOT comes out and takes a look at those.
Okay, yeah, but build a fire under their derrieres. I shouldn't... Well, that's being elegant about it.
I
Thank you very much.
Appreciate the elegance. Thank you very
Mr. Chairman,
much. Yes,
I
sir.
just wanted to say to Mrs. Sheehan that I can't speak for your neighbors or for the management of Breezy Acres, but I'd certainly be happy to stop by and help you do some cleaning up. Plus, I'd like to visit you. You've been very friendly over the years, and if you don't mind me stopping by, I'd be happy to do it.
Okay.
So I'll give you my phone number. We'll talk.
Okay, fine.
Yep.
Thank you.
Thank you for coming.
Okay, Ed Mathias?
How are you tonight? Ed Mathias, Falls Township. First, Ms. Slosky, I wish you well. I hope you're feeling better.
I'm well, thank you. God doesn't want me up there rearranging heaven yet, so he's going to let me stay down here and dance with the politicians.
I hear you. Challenger Field, again, thank you very much. Kids deserve it, like I said, over and over. It's for them. They're the ones who are going to. I just can't wait till it gets done and, go watch them and you just see their expressions and everything. One of the other reasons I'm here is the other gentleman was talking about it, the road program. I spoke to Mr. Sullivan the other day. He was very nice, gracious. He came out. I had an issue with my sidewalk. It was funny, the day I called them, within like an hour later, they were there to, I guess, attempt to fix it. They didn't do anything but just make the water go from one spot to another. Mr. Sullivan and I guess a couple of those guys came out the next day. I talked to him and, explained to him what was going on. My question is, how can this company, I guess it was General Asphalt that did ours, how can they get away with not finishing a job that they started, moving on to another part of the township, getting paid to do that, yet they haven't finished ours? When they did ours was the first street that they tore up and the last street that they paved. We had issues that we brought to their attention before they even did the final coat. We were told they were going to get fixed. They didn't. They came back up, brand new street, dug it up, fixed the problems. Now our brand new street has, several patches in it already. My issue is, like with my sidewalk, the water sits there. I've asked that, have it fixed. They came out, they didn't do anything like they were supposed to do, and like I said, if you asked me, they made it worse. How long do we have to wait before, we're going to get the job completed? I mean, I hear you guys saying that, they're done. It was a few months back that, they're 99% done in Pinewood. Well, I know half the streets, half the houses on my street, none of the grass islands are done right. The grass sits lower than the sidewalk, which it shouldn't. The grass should be up higher, basically, to push the water, let the water, flow down the sidewalk and into the street, but it's not. Everybody's is pretty much lower than, the sidewalk. I have talked to Mr. Sullivan. I know he's trying to get it done, but, my question is, if these guys are paid for this job already, when are they coming back to fix this? How long do we have to wait?
So I'm going to comment, Mr. Clark, too, in terms of would General Asphalt's inability to finish a project make them ineligible for the future to bid or even be accepted as a bidder on a future project?
Only if the engineer declared them in default on the initial contract. If they're not declared in default, it wouldn't disqualify for them from being a responsible bidder on a subsequent contract.
Okay, Mr.
Beg to differ with that opinion.
I'm going to listen to Mr. Sullivan first.
I am going to voice my opinion to Mr. Mathias, so don't go away.
I'll give you a chance in a second. Mr. Sullivan, what would they have to do to be declared in default?
Well, they basically have to walk off the job. I mean, as far as the program that Mr. Mathias is part of, we still holding money for that. I mean, they're still in the punch list phase. They're not even in the. They're still in the performance bond phase. They're not even in the maintenance bond phase. Once they get in the maintenance bond phase, they still have another 2 years to come back and fix things that go wrong during that period.
Well, we are still holding money of
yes,
theirs.
We're still holding money.
And they're not going to get the money until we're satisfied that Mr. Mathias' sidewalk is fixed and other issues.
And the other issues that he's mentioned as well.
Okay.
As far as the patches go, your neighbors insisted on having their
Oh, no, I understand
thing
that.
taken out. I mean,
yeah, I understand that, but
and that's what happens. If you insist on taking it out, we'll take it out for you, but you're going to get a patch in the road.
Yeah, but
there's no other way to do it.
my point with that was, I understand that, but my point with that was it was made well aware before they put the final, we were told before the final coat went down that these driveways were going to be fixed. And, we just figured they were. No, our surprise, here they come and they pave it. I mean, we can't lay in the middle of the street and say, okay, stop. You're not, this is what we were told. We made the attempts. We made the, I did, I know my neighbors did, made phone calls to make, I guess, your company and General Asphalt aware of this. But yet, we were told one thing and, other things are done. And I mean, just like you've seen with mine. I mean, I explained it to you. I mean, you know exactly what needs to be done. You told them that. They come out, do something totally different. I mean, the dirt they use is all rocks. It's not even dirt that's even going to grow grass. Yet, still in the same situation. And I understand you're saying, they have 2 years to do this and do that, but what's the purpose of even hiring them for a new project if they can't even finish the first one they started? And I know they must have, I think they're in another development, this year working, yet, they haven't even, finished what they started in our area.
They're still working on the punch list for the 09 road program as well.
I understand that.
Nothing new has started, but, as long as they're responding to the punch list and doing the work and we have their money.
Well, can't we take
Continue to
the money
work.
that we're holding, can't we take that and pay somebody else to fix it? I mean, why us as the taxpayer, why do we have to wait so long to get this done?
Mr. Clark will have to correct me, but we cannot hire someone else to do work if they continue to work.
Well, I mean, I haven't seen them in our section, and I seen them there once 2 weeks ago. They were on the 3 streets over, and then apparently, in front of my house. I wasn't home, in my neighbor's house. But, it's just, how many times is it going to take for them to get it right?
Well, that I can't answer, but
Yeah, Mr. Sullivan.
As far as you go,
what's
you know that they're going to come out and fix yours probably in the next week or so, and they're going to do it the way we're going to tell them to do it.
Okay, but I mean, what's my recourse? I mean, I'm not going to go hiring lawyers and stuff, but I mean, enough is enough with me anyway. I mean, how much more do I got to put up with? I mean, I want to get my grass growing. I mean, make it look nice, and every time I turn around, I have another issue with it. I just want to get it done and over with. Like I said, we were the first street in Pinewood that they started, and then they disappeared, and we were the last street to get, finally done. And it's just, it's a point now where, every time I come out, I look at my thing, I get pissed off. And it's,
So, Mr. Sullivan, have you been out there with someone from General to yourself just to point out to them what it is that has to get done? And,
Yes.
Okay, so we're going to make sure that happens again real soon.
Yes, sir.
Because obviously, Mr. Mathias is right. It's been a year roughly, and I know we've had some discussions. Their pacing last year, how they scheduled their work, was a serious problem. They were, like you're saying, digging up a road here and then sending a crew over here to do something and never sort of looping somebody back around to do the next process. That was an issue we had to deal with them last year.
But in the contract that they signed, isn't there something that says that, before you pull all your equipment out, you have to be done here? I mean, I don't understand how.
There's a timeline on the contract. They have to have it done by, they're supposed to have it done within a certain span of time. It's supposed to sort of make it the least sort of, inconvenient as possible. But that was something we had to deal with them with on last year, and hopefully they understand this year's, should they be a low bidder on this year's program, that we're going to be expecting them to move in a different way than they did last year. Mr. Sullivan is, we're looking at that option, and we've had that discussion with them before. So, Mr. Kozlowski, you to comment?
Mr. Mathias, common sense is not so common. It took me 45 years to learn that. And if you look at campaign contributions that are recorded in the Board of Elections in Doylestown, you'll find some of your answers there. But very few people have the kind of courage that you do. I admire you very much, sir. I have only known you for 1 year, but you are doing what a responsible taxpayer should be doing. You are coming to your town government and you are expressing your dissatisfaction. Now, all of these people that stay home and gripe and complain, if they would sit down, write a letter to the township and complain about what's going on and what they know is wrong, just use your common sense like you did by coming here. And then something can be done about the lowest responsible bidder, not the highest campaign contributor. And that's what goes wrong in most of the governments, from the federal government right on down here to little old Falls Township. So I thank you for coming, and I hope the people who are watching this tape tomorrow or whenever it plays realize that they have a responsibility to do what you're doing. Make your complaint known. I've tried that for 45 years, and they've tried beating me into the ground, and I'm still alive and kicking, and I expect to be around here for a while. So, you have to be on the side of what's right and honest, and you have to have the courage to do it. Most people want to shove someone out front, and they say, oh, but don't use my name, oh, no, don't do anything about this teacher because my kid has to go to that school, and stuff like that. But you have to decide what's worth fighting for. And remember that we live in the United States of America. We're not in some third world country. And it's a disgrace what's happening here in Falls.
Okay. All right, Mr. Thias, we'll get somebody out there, and we'll have Mr. Sullivan, as Mrs. Sheehan said, light a fire under someone's derriere and make sure it gets done. Okay?
All right, thank you, Mr. Sullivan.
Thank you.
Be here when General Asphalt bids again.
All right, those are the names we have on the list. I don't know if there's anybody else who would like to speak. Mr. Smith?
The clowns are laughing. Bring in the clowns.
Hi, Mark Smith. I was in front of the board last meeting, and as promised, I told the board I would give you, as requested, a copy of the cost of having my driveway, apron, and the curb and sidewalk redone.
Okay.
So I have a copy of that here.
All right, if you can give that to Mr. Gray, he'll...
I'd like to see it first, sir. Board members take precedence over the manager, sometimes. Thank you, sir.
And I just had one other request. I wanted to know if it was at all possible for the residents to be able to see a copy of the requests or reasons that were given that our streets in our neighborhood, Oxford Road in particular, were chosen to be part of the 2010 road program.
I don't know if it's necessarily written. I know Mr. Arneo, our Public Works Director, they've always been the ones responsible for sort of going out and communicating with the engineer as to what roads need to be done at certain times. It's different areas. Obviously the age is one thing. You're seeing is actually we're going back and doing some work on some of the homes or some of the streets in Birch Valley because they were some of the first roads done years ago, and we're just doing sort of some touch-up work on them this year. And so that's one of the issues that as the older sections of the township are kind of done now, moving into sort of the other side of Route 1 where roads aren't as old. And I think that's one of the reasons why the roads on the other side of Route 1 are being done now rather than before. But in terms of, I don't know if Mr. Arneo actually does any kind of like a written thing, or is it just sort of verbal communication, Mr. Gray, with Mr. Sullivan?
I believe it was verbal. I think there was discussion between Mr. Arneo and I think Mr. Sullivan was, the two of them worked those roads out.
Okay. And usually, I think that Mr. Sullivan, what's your opinion in terms of why Mr. Arneo selects certain roads over others? What's your knowledge of that?
That would be that Pensbury Heights section.
Right.
Is what I'm talking about.
Mr. Arneo is the one who is more familiar with the condition of the roads in the township than anyone. And the next section we moved into was across Route 1, and Mr. Arneo set the priority as Pensbury Heights was the first priority because those roads were in the worst shape of any roads on that side of the township.
Yeah, so the residents are kind of confused. We're all wondering, there's not even really any cracks in the road. And I'm hearing some of the people were talking, saying that they heard that the guys that were painting the lines and stuff out there now, getting ready for the work, somebody had said something to about getting the drainage lines had to come up and get replaced. Not sewer lines, but for like drainage,
stormwater,
for water runoff and stuff. So we're just kind of wondering. And then somebody else alluded to the fact that even our trees are going to have to come down that are in the little grass part between the sidewalk and the curb. So there's just a lot of controversy as to why this is even being done. And I was just wondering if there's a piece of paper that indicates why.
Mr. Sullivan?
Well, we did core samples of all the roads in the Pensbury Heights section and found very little asphalt in those roads. So you're talking about a couple inches of asphalt on stone. And the road section we use nowadays is 6 inches of stone and at least 6 or 7 inches of asphalt. So those roads don't meet township specifications. Whether or not the trees have to be removed, a lot of them are growing on top of the curb and top of the sidewalk and, heaving the sidewalk. So there will be trees that have to be removed as part of the program.
And will that be at the cost of the residents? Because I was actually in the process of getting quotes on getting one of those trees removed right now.
No.
Anything that's part of the road program design will not cost the residents directly at all.
Okay.
So the tree removal, anything that has to be done, will be at no cost to the residents. And as far as the storm sewer goes, we look at storm sewer design when we do the road program. So there may be some replacement of pipes, there may be new pipes and inlets and things like that. But we haven't gotten that far yet.
Okay.
Okay.
All right, thank you very much.
All right, thank you. Okay, any other names? Any other people willing to speak? No? Okay. All right, so we are up to item 5 on our agenda, the minutes, April 20th, 2010. Comments or questions from board members regarding minutes? Mr. Zupka?
None.
Mrs. Wisłowski?
I'm going to vote no on them anyhow. They're dreadful minutes.
Mr. Snipes?
Excellent minutes, Mrs. Pullen, once again. Thank you.
You wouldn't know an excellent minute if you saw one.
Mr. Dents?
Comment.
Thank you. And I have none. Thank you, Mrs. Pullen, for all your hard work. Any comments or questions from the public? See no hands. Okay, is there a motion to accept the minutes as presented for April 20, 2010?
So moved.
Seconded?
All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
No.
No.
Okay. All right, executive session. Don't believe we have need for executive session. All right, manager comment. Mr. Gray, you're up.
Yes, thank you. I just have one item tonight. A new video camera is needed for the DARE unit of the police department. This video camera is used to tape DARE graduations at the schools. The older unit is over 10 years old and uses VHS technology. Recently, Matt Markey and Corporal Wolverton have determined several vendors have the unit available that is requested. At this time, the board is asked to consider the purchase of a new video camera for a total not to exceed $1,900.
Okay. All right. And did you say, Mr. Gray, did I miss it, maybe how old the current video camera is?
Yeah, it's over 10 years old. It was purchased in the late 90s.
All right, it's a 10-year-old video camera. So obviously we know how technology moves and the capabilities of the current video camera. All right, comments or questions from board members? Mr. Zupka?
No, with the items being that old, it's time to be replaced with updated technology.
Mrs. Kozlowski?
None.
Mr. Snipes?
No comment.
Mr. Dents?
Nope.
I have none. Comments or questions from public? See no hands. Okay, is there a motion then to purchase the items listed in the memo from Matt Markey dated April 30th, total not to exceed $1,900?
So moved, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, is there a second?
I'll second the motion.
Motion made and seconded. Mrs. Pullen?
Mr. Zupka?
Yes.
Mrs. Kozlowski?
Yes.
Mr. Harvey?
Yes.
Mr. Dent?
Yes.
Mr. Snipes?
Yes.
That's all I have. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
All right, thank you, Mr. Gray. Okay, looking at board comment now. Mr. Zupka?
No, actually, I have none this evening.
Okay. Mr. Dents?
Just to remind people again, like I said a couple of weeks ago, that a lot of kids running around later at night, staying late later. Just be careful driving in the streets. That's all I have.
Okay. Mrs. Kozlowski?
Yes, I'd like to announce that my next project is going to be trying to get the Fairless Hills Athletic Association another field so that their older kids can play. Mr. Sullivan, you were going to scope out if or not there was any possibility on existing fields or locate an area where one might be considered. Have you done so?
There's a possibility that we could fit a field like that at Quaker Penn Park.
Say again?
Quaker Penn Park, where the boat ramp is going to go.
Okay.
There's a possibility we could put a field there, but we haven't really looked at the dimensions to make sure it could happen.
Could you see that I get a picture of the park and what you visualized there? When you get me that other document that I requested before the meeting tonight, I would appreciate having the Quaker Penn Park, okay?
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay. Mr. Snipes?
Yes, Mr. Chairman. I believe at the last board meeting I raised the issue of some comments I've heard from residents about the condition of, or the appearance of the outside of the township building. And I wondered how we could get started thinking about what renovations or changes we'd like to do to the parking lot, the trees, the facade of the building, the sign, those kinds of things. We don't have to discuss it in depth right now, but I wondered how can we get the ball rolling?
Well, I guess one of the topics we have to have discussion. One of the topics I guess we have to consider is if we're going to do something on the outside of the building, do we look at a total renovation, which would be internal and external, or do we just do one part and then the other? Obviously, the part of me feels you either do everything once and get it done, or or not. And my personal feeling is not to go just sort of do this first and a couple of years later do this and a couple of years later do that. Doesn't necessarily work. So I mean, obviously, if we're looking at something much bigger, if the board is interested in doing something like that, then we're talking about a bigger commitment of resources and time. But that's my feeling. I don't know what the board members' feelings.
Yeah, I wasn't, what I heard from residents was really kind of aesthetic in the outside of the building and the look of the building, rather than, obviously, they're probably not going to comment too much on the internal structure of the building.
Right.
So those are the comments I'm hearing.
Okay. Okay.
And maybe it's an issue of doing some landscaping and some, yeah, I hear your concern, but some changes to the building so that when people arrive, they feel like they're arriving at somewhere.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yes.
So, I mean, I'll leave it there, but I'm wondering maybe the manager wants to comment, or maybe there's some way board members can talk about how we want to, if we want to do that, if we want to respond to those concerns, and how we would go about it.
Other board members have comments, or Mr. Gray?
Yes, recently the board did award the landscaping bid to Dawn to Dusk. After that award was given, I did have a discussion with the owner, and I've asked him to work in coordination with the township to spruce up our front that faces the Route 1 side and our entrance into the building. So that's a goal that we're going to work on this year to make it more aesthetic, easier on the eyes.
Okay. It's a good start. Other board members have any comments or thoughts?
No.
No?
We've heard a lot from Mr. Dell, too, at the podium here about the appearance of the building. And it is, you can see plaster falling down, and the atrium is actually kind of scary out there when you look up and you see broken glass. And it's just a matter of time before the glass comes down. So I think something at least needs to be done with the front there, if not the whole building.
Okay. All right. Okay. And their thoughts? I mean, it's always something we can think about. Certainly, board members can make a list or think about some issues they want to would like to see addressed. I know one of the things I've talked to Mr. Gray about too, are you have the sign right outside here at the atrium that says Township of Falls, but you can't see it because there are a couple trees in the way. You can only see sort of like, I think you see the P in Township, and then the word of, and then there's an F, and then that's all you see because the trees block everything else. So that obviously is just a minor thing. That relatively small trees can be removed, and at least that one simple step. But I know Mr. Dents is correct. The atrium certainly needs a lot of work. The sheetrock is falling off. There's actually some moss growing on the inside of the atrium, which is not usually something you see or want to see. But certainly, I guess if board members want to have some thoughts about this, we can revisit this and maybe have a discussion as one of our topics for agenda in the future. Have some kind of a discussion about this issue. I think that's fine.
I'd be happy to make a list of the things that I notice and things that residents have raised to me.
Okay.
And I guess I'll forward
share
that to
those.
the manager.
Yeah, we can forward them to the manager, and we can shoot them around. Okay.
Thank you.
Oh, all right. A few issues I wanted to bring up. I talked, Mrs. Veslowski already brought up the issue of the 13-year-old field for Hillside Athletic Association. That's something we tried very hard to try and find them a spot. There really are not a lot of fields open for baseball, especially not that size. It's essentially you need almost like a varsity baseball field. And so I've been in touch with the people, with the president of Farrell's Hills Athletic Association, and called around a bunch of places, and there aren't really a whole lot of fields available. But I know that Quaker Penn Park was an idea I had as well. Mr. Sullivan, I think he and I are in the same wavelength there. But it's one of the areas that we have to see, even after when the boat ramp's done, are we going to have space there for a field? That's something we can take a look at. Mrs. Sheehan brought up the issue of roads, which is good. I was going to bring up something with roads too. I know, Mr. Gray, you have a list of PennDOT roads in the township that are available for adoption. I know this won't necessarily help your road, but like you're saying, there are people going down the street, they're throwing things out the window, and there's littering. PennDOT, is you may know, you see the signs up, this section of highway adopted by whatever group, and different groups can adopt a section of highway. Usually it's a mile or two of state highway that you go out, usually twice a year, I think is what they ask, and just do a cleanup. I know Mr. Dents has done that several times with his union, the IBEW. But I think, is that list on our website?
Yes, it is on the website.
All right, so there is a list on our website of state roads that can be adopted by groups here in Falls, whether it's Boy Scouts or Girl Scouts, not that they don't already do enough, but church groups or other labor groups or social groups that want to just adopt a section of highway and go out and help clean it up. Again, 2 times a year is not, a tremendous dedication of time, and yet you'd be surprised with some of the results and how nice it looks. And they usually put a sign up that has your organization on there recognizing your efforts. And so if you're interested in that or belong to a group that's interested in that, certainly feel free to visit the website, and that information is on there, and you can contact PennDOT directly. You wouldn't contact us. We don't coordinate that, but the information is there for you to look at. So that's something we can do. Another issue I was actually going to bring up, which is kind of along the same idea, as the weather's nicer, more people outside, like Mr. Dent says, and of course the nice weather, people go out, they exercise, in many cases walk their dogs. We do have an ordinance in this township that you must pick up after your dog. It is certainly something that is, very troubling to people. They go outside, they have kids playing in the front yard, and someone's dog has left behind something that they should not have. That is obviously, in addition to being, just unneighborly, and it's also disgusting and a health risk, quite frankly. If you have little kids running around the front yard and there's someone whose dog has gone by and the owner hasn't cleaned up after them, it is against the law. Now, unfortunately, just like littering, you actually have to catch the people doing it in order to cite them. That's the hard part. But it is something that it should be common sense, as Mrs. Kozlowski said. Common sense doesn't seem to be that common among people. If you're walking your dog and that dog does something, think: would you want somebody to do that on your lawn? Would you want them to leave it there? If the answer is no, then pick it up. It's very simple. It doesn't take much. It's part of the responsibility of being a pet owner, basically, and it's something that I've gotten some complaints about, people saying that why don't people pick up after the dog? Don't we have an ordinance? And yes, we do. Yes, we do have an ordinance. So we shouldn't have to have an ordinance for that. You'd think people would just do that, but unfortunately, we have to enforce that. We will enforce it if you're caught doing it. Let's see. A couple issues for board members. A few, maybe a month and a half ago or so, we did get a report from our engineers, traffic planning and design, regarding the possibility of doing some kind of pedestrian walkway on New Falls Road. What I'd like to do at a future meeting, possibly one that's a little light in terms of issues, is to schedule just a presentation, not necessarily a vote, but I do think that the public should see a presentation of what traffic planning and design came up with, and they can have some discussion, and we can have some discussion, and we can decide where we go from there. We may decide after hearing the presentation that we don't want to do this. We want to take a different avenue, but I think at least the people need to see what the options are, and gives us a chance to have some discussion in public. So in the near future, if not maybe the next meeting, then one of the meetings in June, maybe we'll schedule that just as a discussion item, not for vote, but just for discussion, so we can hear what the options are.
Excuse me, Mr. Chairman.
Yes.
It needs to be very widely advertised. I have heard so many complaints about New Falls Road and what we were talking about doing, and I agree with the complainers. And so you need to make sure that they know when the meeting is going to take place, so they can come out and listen and express their own opinions to this board.
Okay. And that's what we want to hear. We want to hear people's opinions, both for and against, because I've heard both. I've heard people who think it's a good idea and people that don't, and that's fine. That's what we want to find out and see exactly what the options are, and try and be as open as we can and involve as many people as we can. Another, I think, issue, for presentation, what I'd like to see also in the future is a presentation, possibly not at a board meeting, maybe just a special presentation, almost like a town hall meeting, involving traffic planning and design and the police department, both of whom have been looking very heavily at traffic issues in the township this year, trying to do what we can. We've purchased some equipment over the past few meetings for our police department to help them fight against speeding, and fight against the reckless drivers, give them some more tools in their arsenal to help us keep the roads safe. But I think at some point it would be nice to have a meeting just for the public to come out, hear some of the ideas, what the police do regarding this, what their procedures are, and also from traffic planning and design, some ideas they may have just from working in different communities, what other communities have done that we might be able to try and do, or some steps that we might be able to take just to try and control speeding. That's something, again, we can take a look at in the future. I also wanted to pass on some information from our fire marshal, Mr. DiPolito. He's gotten a lot of questions about fire pits and chimeneas, which are these sort of clay, outdoor fireplaces that you can put in your backyard. I've had some concerns about some questions about them as well. One of the issues, of course, and just kind of reading through something here, and I wonder if we can put this in some kind of format, Mr. Gray, that we can kind of put on the website. One of the questions said, can I, open burn versus these chimeneas? The fire pits that you can buy that usually have some kind of a screen lid on them or some kind of a screen. They're the safe kinds of systems where you want to burn wood outside. Because it has that screen mesh on top. The idea behind that is to keep things from flying up in the heat of the fire, things that are flammable that fly onto your roof or fly into piles of leaves or something else that's flammable onto a shed roof, something like that. Open burning is not legal. It is illegal in Falls Township to open burn. You can't just sort of have a fire and start throwing stuff on it. You're not allowed to do that. Some kind of fire pit that does not have some kind of a screen on it is considered open burning, so it's not permitted. Right? Chimeneas are legal. Right? If you have them in your backyard, if you have an area where you sit outside, and you have these things, these outdoor sort of stone things, those are legal. However, you have to be burning wood. You're not burning leaves. You're not supposed to be throwing trash. I mean, that's been an issue. I've gotten a complaint from someone that, people are using these things to just burn leaves in the fall. And of course it creates a lot of smoke. It creates a very sort of unhealthy environment, and that's something else the fire marshal brings up, is that you have to remember that people who live around you, especially if the weather's nice, you're outside, it's a nice night, they may have the windows open. You may have people that have allergies, you may have people that have asthma conditions, and having the smoke kind of come into their house is something that could be a health risk for them. And I'm kind of again reading from his letter, if you do have a neighbor that does this, if it's a problem with the neighbors you have, try talking to them. Let them know it's a problem. Let them know it's an issue. See if you can work it out amongst yourselves. If it turns into a situation that can't be resolved that way, then you are allowed to call the police. You wouldn't use 911. You'd use a non-emergency number, which is available on the website and the cable channel. And that would the police hopefully will be able to sort of solve the problem. But just think about those things. If you have those outdoor, facilities, you're burning those kinds of things. Remember, you're burning wood. Okay, you're not allowed to burn leaves. It's against the law. Anything that you're burning, any kind of container where you're burning those things, any kind of thing that you're buying, a fire pit, should have some kind of a lid on it that sort of traps any flammable sort of debris from flying up, embers or whatever else. So that's just the safe thing to do, and obviously keeping them away from your house. Not supposed to have them right up against your house. You're going to end up, putting your house in danger. Everybody likes to sort of sit around a fire. It's a nice, it's a nice feeling. It's kind of, I guess takes you back to a sort of simpler time or whatever. But it's also important to be safe. And again, that's something the fire marshal asked me to pass along because of the complaints he's had. Let's see here. Finally, the next meeting, as Mr. Clark mentioned earlier, the next meeting for the Township Board of Supervisors is scheduled for May 18th, which is Election Day. Typically, we schedule for the day after. However, I know a couple of board members have issues with that. And so as we're looking at the day before, which is the 17th, which will be a Monday, would still be roughly 2 weeks from now. Mr. Gray, I don't believe there's any issue in doing a meeting a day early. It's not going to cause any kind of problems or disruptions now. Mr. Clark, Mr. Sullivan, any issues with going on the 17th?
No, none.
Okay. No. All right, so looking at the supervisors here too in terms of the 17th, if that's something that's available.
That's fine with me.
Okay. All right, Mr. Zupka? Yes? Okay, then, Mr. Gray, let's advertise that May 17th, Monday, 7:30 for the next Board of Supervisors meeting. Okay, with that, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
The chairman has adjourned this meeting of the Falls Township Board of Supervisors for May 4th, 2010. This program was pre-recorded earlier for playback at this time. This is the Falls Township Governmental Access Channel 22 on Comcast and 40 on Verizon.